Very good evening. Very good evening to all of you. This is the question paper. Good evening, Shabardashan. Good evening, Shashidharan. Good evening, Raghav, Sanju. Good evening, Dinesh. Let us start the question paper. Today we will discuss modern India. From 6 to 7, we will discuss in detail about modern India. Tomorrow we will finish the paper with the modern world. So today we will discuss in detail the questions how they were asked in modern India. This year, in comparison with paper 1 and paper 2, in all the parts, ancient, medieval, modern, and world history, somewhat difficult questions are from modern India only. But difficult in the sense, if you cannot understand the question, it appears difficult. But if you interpret the question in simple, plain terms, then it becomes easy. Let us see how it is a difficult one and how to understand the question in the right perspective. Once you understand the question in right perspective, question appears easy because the content, whatever you study from modern India, like Bipin Chandra, and in fact, from Bipin Chandra itself, most of the questions came. The Bipin Chandra book, Freedom Struggle, that book is there. Bipin Chandra big book, not the NCERT one. And anyway, if you read NCERT also, you will get the broad idea. But history optional student has to read Bipin Chandra big book also. And Shekhar Bandyopadhyay is the other book for modern India. But this time, in last few years, from Shekhar Bandyopadhyay, questions were asked. But UPSC this time, earlier, Bipin Chandra was the main source for modern India. But once again, in between few years, there was a gap. But this year, most of the questions, only few questions are from Sumit Sarkar. And one question is with respect to post-independence. There was a completely different book. And it's very difficult to understand. Question itself is very difficult one in post-independence. Most of the questions from Bipin Chandra freedom struggle for independence. Now we will see one by one. Once you know the question in the right perspective, it is easier one. This is the first question. See this? Colonialism had a twisted logic of its own for commercialization. It emerges on analysis to have been often an artificial and forced process. And here you see the particular instruction, critically examine the following statements in about 150 words. So for every question, generally most of the students forget this. Simply they take it as single sentence. Always you add critically examine in the end of the question so that you will get the right perspective. Colonialism had a twisted logic of its own for commercialization. It emerges on analysis to have been often an artificial and forced process. This statement is taken from Sumit Sarkar. In Sumit Sarkar, in commercialization. So it was there in this particular sentence. Now if we see the answer, always Britishers, whenever a new policy comes under British rule, they always project it as a process of modernization. So let me draw this one, then only you will have right perspective. Suppose if we go to this, when it comes to modern India and modern world, both go together. Because both modern India and modern world has direct correlation. If something happens in some other part, it affects India also. That is why always we should have old map with us while we are preparing for paper 2. We'll see this. After Battle of Plassey and Battle of Buxar, Britishers brought so many policies. And one of the significant policies is economic policies. While they are bringing economic policies, they always used to project as if they are here in Indian subcontinent to modernize India. They brought agriculture, commercialization of agriculture. They project it as a tool for the modernization. So they always project like India is a backward country. Indians don't know how to live according to the modern times. Once upon a time, maybe great one, but now it is completely backward society. That is why it is their God's duty. God has sent the British. It is the duty given by the God to modernize Indian subcontinent. That is what always British policies and the attitude of the British were always like this. In this case also, whether it is introduction of the railways, introduction of the modern education, introduction of modern administrative systems, all these things they always project it as in good light. Now this question, in that context, this particular question is saying that colonialism had a twisted logic of its own for commercialization. You can see the sentence. If you have that particular ideology in the mind, then it becomes very easy to understand. Because this question appears very difficult one when you read the sentence just on its own. But if you understand this ideology, and now you read the sentence. Colonialism had a twisted logic of its own for commercialization. British always say commercialization of agriculture is a tool of modernization. But what Sumit Sarkar is saying, colonialism had a twisted logic. It has some other reason. It emerges on analysis to have been often an artificial and forced processes. Always, this commercialization is not a natural one, but a forced one, artificial one. And simple answer is how they introduced commercialization, that is the only one. The pattern of commercialization is the answer, simple one. Now when it comes to this, you see this. The process of railway construction, raising exports, commercialization have been sometimes hailed as signs of modernization. Orthodox economists tend to associate commercialization with the development of agricultural surpluses and rural prosperity. It develops rural people. But the colonial people had something in their mind. Because of that, they introduced this particular policy. And just we need to mention how they introduced the commercialization. Commercialization tools, what are various commercialization tools? Plantation is one thing. Because of that, they introduced plantation crops so that farmers get the cash and they get the ready-made market in the European and other old markets. And here they brought new revenue policies and they forced peasants to pay in the cash, and to come out of the poverty, peasants were forced to go for commercialized crops, cash crops, and in this way Indian peasants integrated with world market, that commercialization of agriculture emerged. But unfortunate events, like whenever scarcity of food grains were there, it led to so many famines in India. But here we have to just focus on the pattern of commercialization. the artificial and forced process. How it is an artificial one? We have to see the reasons for the artificial colonization or the commercialization. Colonial interest, they wanted always raw material from India. That is why they forced commercialization. That is the colonialization intention. But outward projection is development of agriculture. Next, drain of wealth. You just quote Dadabhai Nauroji, drain of wealth, and just take out Indian resources to Europe, deindustrialization, railways and infrastructure. So gradually, they forced all these institutions on India, and that led to the pauperization, famines, and poverty across India. So these, just you need to have some idea that what are various policies in bringing commercialization to Indian subcontinent. Railways, one-way free trade, land revenue system, monoculture, opium trade, all of them had colonial reasons, but they projected them as modernization. So these are the processes which they brought forcefully, artificially, in the name of modernization. Is it clear, all of you? So how they introduced forcefully the commercialization? That is the question you have to understand. Second one, after 1857, the peasants emerged as the main force in agrarian movements. Critically examine. Here you see this, after 1857, the peasants emerged as the main force in agrarian movements. This sentence directly from Bipin Chandra. It is while explaining about agrarian movements, this particular sentence comes, and particularly after 1857. And this is all about the agrarian movements and the role of peasants in the agrarian movements. And when it comes to answer, just to mention various agrarian movements after 1857 and factors for the rise of agrarian movements, and why peasants participated in agrarian movements. Can you give what are the reasons why peasants participated in the movements against the British? Can you give some examples? Why they participated? Very good. The first and foremost is the land revenue policies. Because of that, peasants got affected and they participated in peasant movements. Any other? Exorbitant revenue demand. Very good. Any other? Can you think? Why peasants were against the British? Simple term. Very good. And this commercialization of agriculture itself is one example. Jamindars' lands were confiscated. Another example. Land revenue settlement, Jamindari settlement, Rohitwari settlement, Mahalwari settlement. Yes. High taxes and money lenders, atrocities on high debt by peasants, Indigo Rebellion. These are examples. Deccan riots is one example. Indigo Rebellion is one example. And gradually, after 1900s, can you give some peasant movements after 1900? Gandhiji also participated. Kheda Satyagraha, Champaran Satyagraha, so Bardoli Satyagraha in Gujarat. These are examples of various peasant movements. After Great Revolt, 1857, and in the peasant movements, here the question is, the peasants emerged as the main force in agrarian movements. But in agrarian movement, question is critically examined. Do you think only peasants participated in agrarian movements? Do you think only peasants participated in agrarian movement? No other class participated? Along with peasants, other classes like enlightened individuals also supported the peasant movements. For example, Indigo Rebellion. Yes, middle class, Tarun, very good. When it comes to Indigo Rebellion, one intellectual has even written the book on Indigo Rebellion. Who was the one? Educated Indians? Yes, they enlightened the peasants. It is not only about the peasants, but there are other sections also who supported the peasants. In critical examination, you have to mention some of them also. Yes, leaders, nationalist leaders, they were also talking about peasant problems. But here, most of the question goes for the causes why peasants participate in agrarian movement. And in critical examination, not only peasants, from some other sections also, peasant movements got the support. And if I just show you the subheadings, you will come to know this. Notable peasant movements. Here, post-1857. We are talking about post-1857. Indigo Revolt, Pabna Revolt, Deccan Riots, Bengal Tenants, Oudh, then Champaran Satyagraha after 1900. So likewise, some examples you can give. Now, factors for the rise of agrarian movements, impact of land revenue system. Just you can give 2 points. Commercialization of agriculture, another reason for peasants' problems. Rise of indebtedness, loans, then critical assessment when it comes to that, limited and local in nature. And whatever peasants are fighting against the British, very local in nature, Deccan riots for Deccan region, and Indigo Rebellion near Bengal region. Later, when it comes to nationalist leaders came, they gradually brought these movements to the pan-India level. So their contribution is also there. Not only the peasants, but some other sections also contributed for the peasant movements. Because question is talking about critical examination. That's why we have to mention about the others' contribution also. And it is not a sudden emergence. After 1857 only, peasants did not participate in movement. In fact, 1857 revolt itself, one of the causes is peasant cause. Peasant Peasant problems were there, and resistance against British policies, 1857 also there. That tradition continued after 1857. So likewise, you have to mention the causes and support from the other sections. Neel Darpan, very good. So many students saying Neel Darpan. So that shows the support from the middle class, educated, enlightened individuals for the support of peasants. That is about agrarian movements. Now, third one. What is the third one? Awakened political consciousness of Indian masses bound with dishonorable and cowardly insults of the British led to the movement of non-cooperation, critically examination. And you see here question is little bit straightforward only, but only sentence it appears a difficult one. Simply we need to talk about what are the factors for beginning of non-cooperation movement. And in those causes, one cause is awakened political consciousness, one reason. Another one is the acts of the British, the behavior of the British, in simple terms. Suppose non-cooperation movement in 19 and 20s, non-cooperation movement started. Now, what are the circumstances? Can you remember some of the circumstances for non-cooperation movement? Even soldiers were merely peasants in, okay, Raulat? Khilafat, yes, Khilafat movement. Rowlatt Act, Rowlatt Act, and before that, why there was so much protest against the Rowlatt Act? Detention, yes. So without trial, unlawful detention without trial. Any other? So why Indians were so dissatisfied with Rowlatt Act? Jallianwala Bagh massacre, very good. Before Rowlatt Act, before Jallianwala Bagh, this is the age of First World War. 1914, World War I started. And Indians wholeheartedly supported the British cause. And even though before World War I itself, some revolutionary activities were going on. Just during this time period, Ghadar movement and individual heroic acts were also going on, and suppression was also going on. British suppression was also going on. Despite this suppression, when World War I started, wholeheartedly Indians supported the cause of British, in the hope that after 1914, after the First World War, they bring certain reforms. And before that, in 1905, Swadeshi movement started. Swaraj. Now people started demanding Swaraj. Even though there is no clarity what Swaraj means, still local self-government, more Indians in the administration. We are hopeful that after First World War, we get the reforms. But what reforms we got? In 1919, what is the act brought by the British? Government of India Act 1919. What is the act? Yes, Sanju? Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. Montagu statement in 1917. Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. And these reforms disappointed. And meanwhile, they brought Rowlatt Act also, and Jallianwala Bagh massacre also. And here, already in 1915-16, Swaraj, Home Rule movement was also going on. So on one hand, people supported the British. On the other hand, people also fighting against the British in the form of Home Rule movement. These aspects you talk about awakened masses. And these Rowlatt Act, Jallianwala Bagh massacre, these are what saying? Dishonorable and cowardly insults of the British. So whatever policies they brought, Indians have seen it is a coward act because British were afraid of Indians. That is why Rowlatt Act was passed. Otherwise, Indians supported during First World War. What is the necessity of bringing when people, Indians are supporting World War? Why would Indians create the British problem if they are really honoring their commitments? That is why this is a coward insult of the British and dishonorable. So these are the acts from the British. From Indian level also, awakened political consciousness. Swadeshi movement, Home Rule movement, individual heroic acts. So these are the examples of awakened political consciousness of Indian masses. Bound with these acts led to the movement of non-cooperation movement. In simple terms, what are the factors for the initiation of non-cooperation movement? But your focus mainly goes, first part is going for the awakened masses, second part goes for the British activities. And when it comes to the answer, just I will show you the subheadings, you will understand it. Awakened consciousness, Home Rule movement, this is a symbol of awakened Indians. And Montagu-Chelmsford reforms and Government of India Act 1919, this is also because of the Indian pressure they brought these reforms. And influence of Gandhian ideology, Satyagraha, truth and non-violence, people were awakened. And what are the dishonorable actions? Rowlatt Act 1919 and Jallianwala Bagh massacre and post-World War I treatment. So because of all these things, non-cooperation movement emerged. And critical examination is there. It is not only about these two. When it comes to critical examination, it's simply you have to talk, not only these two are the factors, there are some other factors also for non-cooperation movement. And those factors are economic hardship due to First World War, rising unemployment, rising prices, and already old problems of peasants, they are going on, all of that. Communal representation. Yes, after Lucknow merger, both that you can write in the awakened masses. Awakened masses, both Hindu-Muslim unity, awakened masses. Khilafat movement is why all Indians supported Khilafat movement means that is one signal of support to Muslims and thinking about awakened masses. Revocation of Defense of India Act was a futile arrangement. Yes. Russian Revolution inspired many masses, very good example. So that is how awakened. When it comes to the awakened masses, you give those examples. Dishonorable acts of British means just what oppressive policies British brought. You just give the examples. Because it is for 10 marker question. So if you write 4 points in the first part, 4 points in the second part, that is enough. Is it clear, all of you? So this is about this question, non-cooperation movement. Question number D. When Gandhiji launched the civil disobedience movement, he was desperately in search of an effective formula. Critical examination. So what is the meaning of it? Why Gandhiji desperately in search of effective formula? What are the circumstances? And again, for civil disobedience movement, you have to think about what happened after non-cooperation movement. One question came from non-cooperation movement. Now this question is on civil disobedience movement. Gandhiji launched civil disobedience movement. He was desperately in search of an effective formula. In simple terms, what are the circumstances? And now, why Gandhiji wanted an effective formula? So what are the circumstances forced Gandhiji to launch civil disobedience movement? Simon Commission, effects, Roundtable Conference. Okay, very good. Delhi proposal proved failure. Nehru report, Simon Commission and Nehru report, all right. Just think about after non-cooperation movement. Now in 1922, non-cooperation movement was withdrawn, and this movement was going very well. It reached almost peak stage. And suddenly Gandhiji withdrew non-cooperation movement. As a result, what happened? Now suddenly movement came to halt. Now many youth disappointed. Now Gandhiji has to satisfy the angry youth now. But it is not going to happen suddenly. It takes some time. Till 1930, now these issues, some issues are keep on going in 1922. This is one angry. And in 1925-26, individual revolutionary activities were also going on. Hindustan Socialist Republican Associations under leadership like Chandrasekhar Azad, Bhagat Singh. Once again, youth. And here those who are participating non-violent way, they also not happy with it. And these who are going for the violent activities, they are also not happy with Gandhian methods. Now they are also aiming for the freedom of India, but they are going in a different path. And these people are disillusioned, they don't know what to do now. Now Gandhiji need a formula to, now movement is going in multiple directions. When civil disobedience movement started, now Gandhiji wants entire India to follow single goal to fight against the British. But before that, now in Punjab region is going on, communist activities were also going on. So in this way, the energy of the youth is going. Now disillusioned youth, they are also looking for some kind of formula. Now, under these circumstances, Gandhiji now looking for some kind of mechanism where he can pull all the sections of the people to the mainstream of freedom struggle. And that is what we have to first explain after non-cooperation movement, what are the circumstances. And meanwhile, Simon Commission comes. Now, once again, people started coming to the national mainstream. Gandhiji utilized this. Now he launched civil disobedience movement. So need for effective formula, post non-cooperation movement developments, disillusionment, Simon Commission and Nehru report, this is the one. Emergence of radical groups. Many radical groups are just expecting quick resolution and search for a unifying cause. Now different people are fighting for the British against with different causes. Now Gandhiji wanted a unifying formula so that all these people will come together and fight against the British. Under these circumstances, he brought a kind of civil disobedience formula. But again, when it comes to critical examination, he did not go away from his own core tenets, truth and non-violence. He always remained to those ideals, truth and non-violence, whether it is a non-cooperation movement or civil disobedience movement. That is what philosophical consistency, truth and non-violence, and always he tried to maintain it. Online students, any doubts? Is it clear? Simply, it is asking about, now why modern India questions appear difficult means in interpretation of the question. Because question is not straightly, if question is, what are the circumstances for civil disobedience movement? It is very easy. But question statement has given like that. Now we have to think a little bit so that we have to analyze in simple terms. Now next question. If abdication of British responsibility at the time of transfer of power was callous, the speed with which it was done made it worse. The statement is directly from Bipin Chandra only. And this statement is also from Bipin Chandra only. This statement is also from Bipin Chandra only. Directly. Most of the questions in modern India from Bipin Chandra. If abdication of British responsibility at the time of transfer of power was callous, the speed with which it was done made it worse. What is the meaning of it? Now the question is revolving around developments just before India's independence. And it is asking, British responsibility was callous. Now you have to know what is the meaning of callous. What is the meaning of callous? It was done in haste, okay. Demarcation of Radcliffe Line, okay. What is the meaning of callous? Limited, okay. Any other meaning? Not developed, okay. Any other? Because unless we know what is the meaning of callous, we cannot really understand what they are asking. The speed with which it was done made it worse. We can understand. So callous. I will show you the meaning of it, then you will have better idea. Just read this. Insensitive, very good. Insensitive and unsympathetic attitude towards India. So once you know it, then the way the British behaved in partitioning and giving independence, it is very insensitive and it is very unsympathetic attitude towards Indians, common Indians. Now we have to substantiate on what basis we are saying that Britishers were insensitive. On what basis we say Britishers were not having any sympathetic attitude towards India in dealing with the partition and transfer of the power. Mountbatten's accelerated timetable. Initially they told they will give the independence in 1948. February statement of Attlee is, they said 1948. But suddenly when Mountbatten came, he said, not in 1948, but in just another 2-3 months. He said, hardly there were 70-80 days, 72 days timetable was given by Mountbatten. So within 72 days, now they have to deal with partition and also freedom. So freedom with partition, that shows lack of sympathy towards Indians. What will happen in such a hasty decision takes? Anything can happen, but the Britishers were unsympathetic towards Indians. That is one evidence to show that Mountbatten's accelerated timetable is insensitive. That is one evidence we will give. Then partition and boundary commission. And boundary commission also, it was very fast. And the person who was given responsibility, Radcliffe was given responsibility, he never visited India. He never visited India. He was given responsibility to partition India. So how insensitive it is. At least someone who know India, Indian condition, if similar to Simon Commission. Simon Commission, what is the purpose of Simon Commission? To know about India's position or Indians, whether Indians are ready for the constitutional reforms or not, but without any Indian. So how insensitive that one. So they always see Indians as not at all educated people. Now in this case also, the person who never visited India, he was given responsibility to divide India. So how insensitive that is. That is another evidence to show that. And no plan to handle security concerns. The army people themselves acknowledge this fact that suddenly army people also were just nobody knows what is going to happen. Army also were never got any clarity that how to handle the security situation. That is again insensitive. Lack of anticipation. That is irresponsible attitude of the British. What will happen when such a already Hindu-Muslim conflicts were going on? It is not a sudden one. And already communal tension is going on. Already in Quit India movement, violent activities were taking place. Now they did not anticipate it. That shows irresponsible attitude. Political expediency over welfare. So they always thought about Cold War politics. This is also the time period of Cold War at the world level. And they always calculated the Cold War calculations that once India, Pakistan were partitioned, now it appears during Cold War, it is beneficial to them. So they always thought in that angle, not they thought about Indians' welfare. With no regard of morality. They played politics that paved the way for great game of Cold War era in the years to come. Yes, and still we are facing the consequences of it. So that shows that is what the callous attitude. So unless you have this meaning, so if you know the meaning of callous, if abdication of British responsibility at the time of transfer of power was callous, the speed with which it was done made it worse. That means the consequences of this irresponsible attitude is very severe. Communal tension. What happened when they took this decision? Immediately communal tension started. Now, do you know how many people migrated? The largest ever migrations took place in this event. Nearly 1 crore people, there is no estimation also properly, nearly 1 crore to 2 crore people, mass migrations took place. When it comes to death, there is no count. Some estimates say 10 lakh people died. So from 2 lakh people to 10 lakh, different estimates will come. So 10 lakh people died, 1 crore people migration, such a kind of human disaster had taken place during that time period. So the way they executed this plan is made worse. All of you clear? Clear this? So simply it is about the behavior of the British. How did the British partition India in simple terms? Next question. 2A. The Carnatic Wars, the Anglo-Mysore Wars, and the Anglo-Maratha Wars had virtually eliminated the French from the contest of supremacy in South India. Discuss. So it is simple terms, the conflict between British and the French. 3 different occasions, they fought, British and French, particularly in Carnatic Wars, they fought bitterly. And in Anglo-Maratha Wars and Anglo-Mysore War, French supported the Indian rulers, and indirectly they were trying to regain the power once again, but by Anglo-Maratha Wars, by 1820s, completely virtually eliminated the French from the contest. So simply here we need to talk about during Carnatic Wars, during Anglo-Mysore Wars and Anglo-Maratha Wars, here British versus French. So when it comes to Carnatic Wars, just you mention 3 Carnatic Wars, 1, 2, 3. Finally, after Battle of Vandivash, completely they eliminated. Now, remnants of the French forces, they used to support Tipu Sultan. Tipu Sultan was having good relations with French. Tipu Sultan father Hyder Ali, and with the help of French only, he created one manufacturing center, defense center also near Dindigal. And in fact, Hyder Ali, he himself was a soldier in the French army. So they learned the techniques from the French. They tried to modernize the Mysore army. But finally, when Mysore defeated, the French were also indirectly defeated. And same is the case with Anglo-Maratha Wars also same. Marathas also tried to modernize their army with the help of French. But now, British with their diplomacy, they completely sidelined the Europeans. That is one of the provisions of subsidiary alliance is also, without knowing Britishers, the native rulers should not employ any European soldiers or any European power. And why do they had that kind of provision? Because French people were always trying to take the advantage. French people always trying to get some kind of opportunity with the help of native to fight against the British. But the British, with their diplomatic maneuver, they completely virtually eliminated the French. So 3 incidents, just you need to explain different wars and how the French were defeated. Started with the Austrian War of Succession in Carnatic Wars. Yes, so first you explain Carnatic Wars, finally the result, defeat of the French. So first round, elimination. Second round, Tipu Sultan. Tipu Sultan Hyder Ali also took the help of French. Finally, after Fourth Anglo-Mysore War, Mysore itself got eliminated completely, and Mysore itself came under subsidiary alliance of the British. French threat eliminated. And the final chance, Marathas also defeated. Finally, British and French in struggle, French were completely removed. So this is a little bit straightforward only, but generally up to now, questions were asked on Carnatic Wars. But now UPSC mixed Anglo-Mysore wars also, Anglo-Maratha wars also. Only you have to extend this knowledge from 1740s to 1820s. So when it comes to Carnatic wars, from 1740s to 1760s, up to now, in previous year questions, you will find the role of French people in Carnatic wars. So we were focusing on this particular time period. Now you have to extend this till this time period. That means after 1760 also, French people were still trying to make their presence, but they were defeated subsequently also indirectly. Advent of Europeans. This is the question with respect to this one. Now, while introducing the Indian Council's Bill of 1861, the British thought that only government suitable for India is a despotism controlled from home. Comment. So what is the attitude of the British in 1861? That is what we have to highlight here. While introducing the Indian Council's Bill, the British thought that only government suitable for India is a despotism controlled from home. Comment. So it is indirectly the attitude of the British towards Indians in giving more participation of Indians in the administration. 1861, what are the circumstances just before 1861? What happened in the Queen Proclamation? Yes, 1857. After 1857 Great Revolt, 1858 Government of India Act came. And after that, 1861 Councils Act came. Can you remember what are the provisions of 1861? Can you, any idea? 1861, Crown took up under direct rule, that is with 1858 itself. It is mainly talking about Indian councils. So more number of Indians, they try to include in the British Governor General Council or Viceroy's Council. But the number of Indians very limited and the powers of Indians also very limited. Just in 1861, the kind of attitude towards Indians is very severe. Just 1857 revolt took place. Because of that, Britishers were not in a position directly give some kind of power to Indians. Under these circumstances, because they always believed that this particular sentence, the only government suitable for India is a despotism controlled from home. That means they always believed that the best way to handle India is it has to be despotism controlled from United Kingdom, not from here. That is why they showed that attitude in giving the Council Act provisions also. They did not give the powers to Indians. They only made representatives, only few people, not many people. Just you need to highlight different provisions and the attitude of the British. I will give you the subheadings, you will understand. So first you will write the features of 1861, that Indian Councils Act enlarged the Governor General Executive Council for purpose of making laws. 6 to 12 members in the Executive Council, non-officials, Indians or British. Provincial legislature was also expanded with certain legislative powers being devolved to them. Up to now, more centralization was taking place. Now, after this, gradual decentralization also took place. Despotism from home. So, the British attitude at this time is they didn't want to give powers to Indians. Now, that attitude is visible. Just you need to highlight the limitations of 1861. like they cannot discuss the budget, number of Indians, very limited participation, so no virtually no powers to them. So that is how, because the British ultimately wanted to control Indian territories absolutely from the British. And that attitude you need to highlight. And why British justifications? British often justified their authoritative control by claiming India that with a diverse population, culture, tradition requires a strong centralized governance. Always they say India is not a unified country. India always, they know only despotic type of rule. They never know what democracy means. That is the kind of British attitude, and that attitude only they always try to justify their actions. So just we need to highlight the features, limitations, and the attitude of the British. These are the three aspects with respect to this particular question. India was congeries of petty states. Yes, that was the attitude. So this is how you need to highlight the provisions, limitations, and the attitude of the British towards India. Clear this? Now you see once again peasant revolt. This time, 2-3 questions on peasant revolt. The root of the whole question behind the indigo revolt is the struggle to make ryots grow indigo plants without paying them the price of it. Analyze. What is the meaning of it? What are the causes for indigo revolt in simple plain terms? The root of whole question behind indigo revolt is the struggle to make ryot grow indigo plants without paying them the price of it. Analyze. Yes, forced evictions, and when giving the advances also they are forcing the peasant to take the advances. And when it comes to the price also, again that price also forced one. It is not a fair one. Peasants were forced to sell the indigo plants, indigo crop at very low price, because on one hand the revenue demands were increasing. On the other hand, when every peasant grow indigo crop in single location, obviously the prices will go down, and they are forced to go for low price settlement. They created defunct buyers market. So just you need to highlight the root causes behind the indigo revolt. So just you can see system of indigo cultivation itself is the problematic one. Economic exploitation, physical and psychological oppression. And when it comes to the indigo revolt, from the peasant side, these are the factors, and from enlightened middle class also, they got the support. And wider socio-political context, after 1857 revolt, the context changed after 1857. Now, Dinabandhu Mitra, Neel Darpan, outcome and recognition. After that, the British also recognized the problem, and they appointed commission also. So just you need to highlight what are the main focus goes to the causes for indigo revolt. So this is the question. So many questions are statement based question. That's why it is appearing difficult, because we need to give some time to understand the question. But try to understand in simple terms, then you will get the answer. Because whatever, suppose if question framed in a different way, it appears very easy. Next one, do you agree that decline of traditional Indian artisan production was a fact, sad but inevitable? What does it mean? This statement is from Soma Sekhar. Do you agree that decline of traditional Indian artisan production was a fact, sad but inevitable? It is talking about industries. What is the meaning of the sentence?
So it means with progress of time, Indian traditional industries were not complying with the world demand.
Okay.
Hence, it was inevitable.
So it is natural that one day Indian artisan production is going to completely disappear.
Industrial revolution was going on.
Industrial revolution was going on in Europe. From that context, the British scholars says economic drain theory. The British scholars say that deindustrialization, it takes 10 more minutes. In simple term, it is talking about deindustrialization. So far, questions were asked about what are the factors for deindustrialization. So now, if question is about this, then every student feel very much comfortable. But this statement is also asking about that only. What are the factors for deindustrialization? But the statement is twisted. The sentence is asking, giving the opinion of the British side. And British always say that this deindustrialization is a natural process. That is why we don't have anything to do with it. Because in Europe also, traditional artifacts changed and industrialization started. In India also, British policies tried for industrialization. Therefore, the traditional artisan activities will disappear. That is what the British opinion. But is it the same process? Whatever deindustrialization that took place, whatever the way traditional handicraft transformed into modern industries, the scenario is different in United Kingdom. The way they have treated Indian industries is different. But they tried to say that if we say, because of you, we were deindustrialized, but British scholars say, no, it is a natural process, we don't have anything to do with it. Because in London also, traditional artifacts changed and modern industries came. Similarly, in India also, modern industries will come. It is a natural. We have to just substantiate it's like a forced deindustrialization. You give various factors for deindustrialization. So now just you need to mention British economic policies for the reasons. Industrial revolution in Britain took place, but in Britain it was substantiated with modern industries, but in India they did not do so. Infrastructure and transportation. In Britain also, infrastructure developed, railways developed. With their railways, markets and manufacturing centers integrated. But when it comes to India, what happened? Raw materials were taken away by the British. So raw materials, they developed railways, but to take out the raw material, but not for the industrial purpose. Deurbanization, gradually these traditional artisans, earlier they used to stay in towns, now they were not getting market, now they went to rural areas. And as a result, now it is a cycle, vicious cycle. Now more deurbanization, now more and more people went to the rural areas, deindustrialization took place. Agrarian distress, once agrarian people are good, then they provide the market. But if agrarian itself is in distress, then they cannot provide the market. Again, market for industry is limited, deindustrialization. So was it inevitable? Just we need to highlight, it is the forced process of the British policies, not the inevitable one, not a natural one. It is a forced one. So simply question is about the factors for deindustrialization. Deindustrialization of traditional artifacts due to IR was inevitable. Yes. So simply we need to talk about the British policies behind the deindustrialization. Next question. The historical significance of tribal and peasant uprisings in India lies in that they established strong and valuable traditions of resistance to British rule. In simple terms, how can you explain this statement? What is the simple meaning of this? In single frame, if single phrase. Online students, can you try? The historical significance of tribal nationalism. Okay, can you elaborate, Dinesh? In simple terms, it is asking what is the significance of tribal and peasant revolts. Historical significance of tribal peasant uprisings lies in that they established a strong and valuable tradition of resistance to British rule. So, simple terms, what is the significance of tribal and peasant uprisings in the fight against the British? So, what is the specialty? What is the significance? What is the importance of this? And one of the importance lies in that they established a strong and valuable tradition of resistance. There are many significance, there are many specialties about tribal and peasant uprising. One of the important significance is they established a strong and valuable tradition so that many people have taken the inspiration. And there are other things also that we have to explain. So this is what historical significance of this. Challenge to British authority. Tribal people and peasant revolts, they challenged the British authority. That is the significance of it. Widespread geography and different geographic locations had seen this. As a result, it created awareness in different locations. In Bengal, in Deccan, in Gangetic Valley, in Deep South. It created a tradition of resistance against the British. That is one of the importance. Different examples you will give. Next, unifying the local struggles, that whatever local causes were there, they tried to use them. Now, rising socio-economic issues. Through these revolts, they raised the socio-economic issues. Cultural significance, that when it comes to Munda revolt example, the British cultural imposition was challenged by these revolts. That is another significance. Then colonial policies also responded whenever there was revolt against the British. That is another significance. They laid the inspiration for millions of people. That is significance. Seed for larger movements in later time periods. And in 1857 revolt also, there is one statement. The tradition of peasant and tribal revolts laid foundation for 1857 revolt. Because already that a tradition of resistance is going on, 1857 has seen in a major way. After 1857, the major peasant revolts, just now we have seen in the previous, after 1900, different peasant movements also emerged. They all emerged because of this tradition of revolts against the British. So in simple terms, the significance of peasant and tribal revolts. They were very much concerned about three: religion, land, customs. Yes. So that was the main demands. Those were the main problems. And those are the problems of millions of people. So they showed the path how to resist against the British exploitation. So they gave the examples, and later it was inspiring. It inspired millions of people. Later, major movements started. So this is 3B. Next, 3C. To accomplish the aims of education, political propaganda and formation as well as propagation of nationalist ideology, the press became the chief instrument. So here, what is the meaning of this? In simple terms, it is asking about the contribution of press. There was one previous year question that press acted not only as a newspaper but also views paper. They are not only just reporting the news, but they are also giving the views so that they are enlightening the people. So simply it is asking about the contribution of the press. So how press became a tool for political propaganda, instrument before the rise of mass agitation, platform for intellectual debates. So just if you read the subheadings, you will come to know. Platform for intellectual debates. So it's all about the contribution of the press in generating awareness. Then formation of the nationalist ideology. Almost most of the nationalist leaders were having the newspapers. They are not only act as news, but also newspaper. Educational aims, they educated the people. Cultural and social reforms, they also have taken up. So countering the colonial narratives. Colonial people always say that they came here for betterment of India, but newspaper press is exposing the true nature of the British intentions. And likewise, they contributed for the nationalism and enlightenment of the people. That is how. Now 4A. The universalist perspective of socio-religious reform movements was not a purely philosophic concern. It strongly influenced the political and social outlook of the time examined. Only because of the sentence, the question appears to be very difficult. But you try to simplify it. You will understand in simple terms. Can you try what is the meaning of it? The universalist perspective of socio-religious reform movements was not a purely philosophic concern. It strongly influenced the political and social outlook of the time examined.
So the social-religious movement was not confined to philosophical matters, but it was also highlighting the difficulties faced by the society as done by Raja Ram Mohan Roy in the case of widow remarriage.
Yes. So it is simply these socio-religious reforms not only concerned about the philosophical angle, but they are also concerned about political problems and social problems. So that is what just we need to highlight, contribution of the socio-religious reformers to political and social problems. So not only about Vedantic, not only about philosophic concerns they were talking. They are talking about the unity of the people. They are talking about social evils like sati, widow remarriage. They are talking about poverty. They are talking about divisions within the society. So they highlighted political problems and social problems also along with philosophic issues.
The establishment of educational institutions comes under social outlook or
Social outlook, educational, women education, education for the masses, education in vernacular language, and having different newspapers is also to create awareness, political awareness among the common people.
sir, can we say that social reform movements laid foundation for the revolts
Movements, you can say.
movement,
Instead of revolts, movements, the nationalism concept, and they established the
nationalist consciousness?
nationalist consciousness before the rise of pan-India nationalism. And this one, next one, 4B. It is talking about the Congress Socialist Party agenda was not to cut off from the Congress, but intended to give the Congress and the national movement a socialist direction. And simply it is asking about the contribution of Congress Socialist Party, and it always wanted to stay within the Congress stream, but it did not want to go out of the Congress stream. So here, just we need to highlight the establishment of Congress Socialist Party, foundation principles, attitude of CSP since the beginning. So since the beginning, they wanted to stay within Congress stream, because already multiple movements are going on, individual heroic acts away from the Congress mainstream, Communist Party away from the Congress mainstream. But when it comes to Congress Socialist Party, even though ideologically it is having different opinion about the national movement, still they wanted to stay within the broader national movement led by Congress. And that is what just we need to highlight the attitude of Congress Socialist Party. The idea of Jawaharlal Nehru, participation in Congress committees, and just whatever principles they are believing, how they acted. So they always wanted to stay within the Congress fold only. They didn't want to, because they don't want a split. Because they have already seen Congress split, extremist and moderate split in 1907. And in 1920s, Swaraj Party, once again, split was about to take place, somehow it was safeguarded. Similarly, when it comes to Congress Socialist Party, they don't want to split the mainstream leadership. They want to stay within it. Just we need to explain their attitude. Now 4C. This is one of the most difficult questions unless you have some idea about post-independence development, particularly in Hyderabad region, you cannot answer this. How did the factionalized Dalit leadership in Hyderabad undergo a period of intense reorganization between 48 and 53? So very difficult part. Generally, if question is about the Dalit movement after independence, it is easy. But it is particularly asking for a particular geography, Hyderabad, and also time period, 1948 to 1953. That's why it is little bit difficult. Unless you have the content, it's difficult. So this I have taken the content from a book that I posted in Telegram group also. You can take a look at it. Up to now, most of the questions from Bipin Chandra and 2 questions from Sumit Sarkar. But this was from that particular book. And in that, here some of the leaders, like before independence, B.S. Venkatrao, J. Subbaya. It's very difficult to, because Shyam Sundar, little progress in 1930s, development after independence. After independence, at least this was not asked in the compulsory question, either in first question or fifth question. So that's why students can have the skip. They have the chance of in the elimination process, so you can eliminate this question. But you, even though the Congress Socialist Party, that is easy question, you cannot utilize that opportunity. So that problem will emerge, and there are different people. In simple terms, just I will try to explain in simple terms. Before independence, Ambedkar leadership was there. And these people were taking inspiration from Ambedkar. Ambedkar was also one of the important leaders. But immediately after independence, many people went into the fold of Congress Party. And when it comes to Ambedkar, Ambedkar joined the cabinet. And as a result, he could not concentrate on various Dalit parties. And the regional Dalit parties, they have taken advantage of the popularity of the Congress, and they entered into, some of them entered into Congress. And there was a split within the mainstream. There was scheduled caste federation organization. Some splits also took place because of the leadership. After independence, these splits were very common. In Congress also, you will find the splits. Similarly, in Dalit parties also, you find the split. Communist Party also split took place after independence. Again, you will find similar split in Dalit parties also. This, after independence, because of the leadership, their main core tenets are going to be the same. Whether the Communist Party split, whether the Congress Party split, core tenets are going to be the same in all the split. But only leadership problem will emerge. Similarly, here also, those people who don't like one kind of leadership, they became separate wing. So those things with different names, particularly this question is a difficult one. This is really very difficult because in the conventional books, this content is not there. After independence, Bipin Chandra after independence book also doesn't have this much detail here. So only option is leaving this question, only choosing from first, second, third. First anyway, compulsory, only 2 and 3. So this is about modern India. Yes, online student, any doubts? Congress, Socialist Party dominated Congress propaganda. Dalit democracy, I read this one before, still didn't got any lead. Yeah, okay. Very good, Tarun. Even few of the Dalit activists went on to Muslim League fold. Yes. So those things we have to, unless you read very detailed one, it's very difficult to handle this particular question. One difference this year, modern India questions is statement-based questions. Many statements. You have seen many statements. So we have to understand in the right perspective. But most of these statements from the basic book only, Bipin Chandra only. You need not to worry if you read that book. Anyway, for optional student, that is one of the important books. You are going to read it. So just understand in the right perspective, convert into simple plain understanding, plain requirement of the question, then you will be able to write the. Tomorrow we will discuss modern world. And luckily, whenever UPSC give from one section very difficult, the second section is going to be easier one. So in this case, world history questions are easier. In such kind of circumstances, 3 questions you are going to write from world history, 2 questions from modern India. First question compulsory, and just you need to pick up 1, 2 or 3. Was 1 question from another question, 2 questions from modern India, 3 questions from modern world, because modern world questions are easier relatively. So in that way, we have to handle such kind of paper. All right. So tomorrow we will meet with world history. Online students, any doubts you have? Okay. See you tomorrow. World history we will discuss. We will finish tomorrow. Modern world. Same time, 6 to 7. Okay, online students, thank you very much. Tomorrow we will meet with the modern world. And relatively, modern world questions are easier. Tomorrow we will discuss them. Thank you. Thank you very much.